Hello fun people, I'm Isaac Carlson, and today we're breaking down the first and second episode of WandaVision. The first episode's breakdown will go up at the same time as this discussion, and will be linked in the description for you if you're interested to see everything we learned about Wanda and Vision's journey so far in the fourth phase of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. First off, we got the Marvel Studios music blasting, which again I was super hyped for. It just melts my heart to get more epic tales from some of the modern age's most fantastical heroes. Now, episode 2 opens up with Wanda and Vision being awoken by some kind of noise outside of their 1960s reality. While the first episode had some magical elements that called back to the classic sitcom Bewitched, this episode focuses much more on capturing its aesthetic as well as the one established in I Dream of Jeannie, which I really only know about because I remember watching these shows specifically in between episodes of Jeopardy and The Price is Right when my family would visit my great-grandmother. But regardless of how their reality currently looked or how much they looked outside of their window, for some reason, they saw nothing.
Are you using your night vision,
I assure you, my love, I see nothing amiss.
They eventually came to the conclusion that it was most likely just a branch outside of their window, even though that would prove to be false. Nonetheless, they decided to continue to move forward with their relationship and their place in television history by moving their beds together and spicing up the implications of their bedroom before we were shown a classic animated intro for the duo showcasing their superpowered suburban life. After this animated segment, Wanda and Vision are then shown preparing to participate in a talent show fundraiser for the local elementary school. Sure, their act isn't revolutionary or awe-inspiring, but in a moment that seems to show true genuine expression on the part of Wanda, she explains that she desperately wants to make this their home. She wants to embrace this altered reality instead of her real one, where she must face the loss of everyone she has ever cared about.
This is our home now. I want us to fit in.
After this lovely moment, Wanda hears a loud noise, and when she goes outside, she discovers something that is truly out of place from the rest of the world. In a black and white reality, there existed a red and yellow helicopter in her rose bushes, which had the same sword and circle logo that was seen across the desk at the end of the first episode. The helicopter also looks exactly like the one that appeared in the trailers, flying around an ethereal barrier that looks to be made out of something very similar to the ether and the reality gem. When she looked at the small, colorful object, the structure of the sitcom broke down again as a rumbling sound disturbed the cheery songs as we were given a zooming close-up of Wanda. But what does this all mean, and what does this sword symbol refer to? Well, in the comics, this sword and circle are the insignia of a group that was connected to S.W.O.R.D, that was tasked with watching over the state of the universe instead of just focusing on Earth. The comics called S.W.O.R.D the Sentient World Observation and Response Department, but in the MCU, S.W.O.R.D is now the Sentient Weapon Observation and Response Division, which likely means that the agents we saw in the trailers are members of S.W.O.R.D who are looking to try to undo Wanda's reality shifting. It's also possible that this new group was being established and worked on by Nick Fury and was the reason he was working with the Skrulls after the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the defeat of Thanos in Spider-Man Far From Home. Also, the barrier we saw in the trailer is likely showcasing that Wanda is generating her own reality within that bubble, which is something that is so far from anything that she's been able to accomplish so far in the MCU, but definitely aligns with her powers in the comics, like in the event The House of M, which I discussed more in my episode 1 breakdown, which again is linked below. Wanda is supposed to be one of the most powerful heroes in existence, especially in the MCU, where she has the combined powers of the Infinity Stones. What I think this means is that the helicopter Wanda picks up likely came into her reality and was altered to fit within the world she created without her knowing. But that helicopter is not the only entity from the outside that has gotten through. Once Agnes arrived to Wanda's house, though, the laugh track started up again and the events of the day kept moving forward. At the woman's meeting Agnes brings Wanda to, Wanda comes into contact for the first time with a woman who calls herself Geraldine. But in fact, her true name is Monica Rambeau, who was the daughter of Captain Marvel's best friend. She was the little girl who helped Captain Marvel choose the colors of her suit in the 1990s, but now, in the present day, she's a grown adult who is likely an agent of S.W.O.R.D following in her mother and godmother's footsteps. From the outfits of all of the women, it seems that the women wearing all white are the ones who are truly integrated into the world, but Wanda, Agnes, and Monica are all wearing dark colors to show that they stand out in this reality, which likely means that Monica, much like the helicopter Wanda found, entered the reality and was assimilated within it. Meanwhile, Vision attempts to integrate himself into the local neighborhood watch group, but comes into trouble when his gears get clogged up by some gum that he was offered and accidentally swallowed. After Wanda's meeting, she's forced to help Dottie, the leader of that women group, clean up, and while this task was bad, a sudden radio transmission began to come through from the outside world. And that seems to degrade the reality of the world again, leading to Dottie to question who Wanda even was, while an agent on the other end called out to Scarlet Witch.
Wanda. Who's doing this to you, Wanda? Wanda.
Now that agent on the line sounds like it's Agent Jimmy Woo, who originally appeared in Ant-Man and the Wasp as the person who ensured Ant-Man didn't violate parole.
I'll be seeing you again. Where?
But now his work with superheroes seems to have evolved as he appears to be an agent of S.W.O.R.D who's trying to reach Wanda and help her undo what she is creating. By the way he's speaking, it sounds like there could be someone manipulating her to forge this reality. Most likely, that person is either Agnes or the Devil, who's first alluded to when the women's meeting was going on.
Devil's in the details, Bev.
That's not the only place he is.
Since Agnes, who's most likely playing the role of the witch Agatha Harkness from the comics, and the Devil, who is a prominent character in the comics known as Mephisto, are both antagonists for Wanda Maximoff, they may be the ones who are intervening in Wanda's mind, especially since both of these individuals contributed to the stories involving Wanda and Vision's children. That will most likely be very important later on, especially based off of how this episode ends. Suddenly though, when Dottie's glass broke, her skin is pierced, and we see her red blood, the sitcom world returns as it once was, even though Wanda herself didn't seem to believe it. In the second episode's commercial break, we are then shown a Strucker watch commercial, which alludes to the Hydra leader Baron Wolfgang von Strucker, who used the Mind Stone to experiment on Wanda and her brother Pietro in Sokovia. Back at the talent show, Vision and Wanda try to manage a magic show together while Vision is in his delirious state. While Vision wanted to show off his real powers of flight, super strength, and his ability to phase through objects, which I thought was hilarious, Wanda had to keep using her own magic to ensure that none of those showcases of his powers were able to be perceived by the crowd. It's only when they need someone to appear in their box does Wanda have to reveal her magic to some extent to Monica.
1 second I'm backstage and in the next, I'm in a dark cubbyhole.
After freeing the gum from Vision's internals, getting their reward, and returning home, suddenly Vision and Wanda realize that she's pregnant, which probably came about because of how close their beds were at the beginning of the episode.
Vision? Is this really happening?
Regardless of who's really in control of Wanda's reality, after constantly discussing children throughout the entirety of the episode,
Dottie is the key to everything in this town. Country club memberships, parties, school admissions.
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
All of this is for the children.
For the children.
For the children.
it appears to have driven her to desire to manifest Vision's children out of nowhere. But the unfortunate truth was that she couldn't even tell if it was all real. After hearing another loud sound that mirrored what they heard when they were sleeping the night before, they go outside and see a man in a beekeeper suit rising out of the street with the sword symbol on his back. And through this reveal, the sitcom layer was torn off, has intense music built, and Scarlet Witch stared at the agent who she saw invading her reality. It's difficult right now to tell if she has full control over the sitcom world, whether or not she understands who the beekeeper is, or if she can only sense that there are people disturbing her life. But we know that she is able to reject the parts of her reality that she doesn't want, because by seeing the beekeeper, she knows the answer to whether or not what she's experiencing is real.
No.
I think in a similar way to how the helicopter, Monica, and the radio all have been intervening in Wanda's world, that beekeeper was likely an agent in something like a hazmat suit who was trying to invade the world only to be transformed into someone who would look acceptable within that reality. But while Wanda was able to avoid interacting with the Beekeeper by rewinding time, I don't think the S.W.O.R.D agents are going to stop trying to get in anytime soon. After the rewind, suddenly when Wanda and Vision embrace, the entire reality turns to full color, which seems to come about because Wanda is trying to hold on to a perfect life and family while also creating a place that will be able to withstand the stresses and invasions that are coming her way. After an incredibly intriguing, gripping, and exhilarating ride that was the second episode of WandaVision, Wanda and Vision seem to have their iconic twin children on the way, but their future in their sitcom reality doesn't seem like it will continue for much longer, as Wanda is forced to realize by S.W.O.R.D that someone is manipulating her into using her powers for their own purposes. But what did you think of the second episode? Did you like it more than the first one like I did? And who do you think is trying to control Wanda? Let me know down below, and also make sure to subscribe and click the beautiful bell if you're new, and then click on another magical video in the description or on the screen. Finally, as always, thank you to my patrons and channel members. Thanks for watching, and have a magical day.